This is Tyler Attico, and you're listening to the Sci-Fi Sistas.
Everybody, welcome to the Sci-Fi Sistas podcast, where we give you our point of view. We're here live from Shore Leave 43. Say hello, everybody. Hey. Hey. Yay, that's what's up. We've been here with these very, very patient folks while we got it together. And we are so excited to be here today. I'm joined by my sister, Sabrina Wood.
Whoop, whoop.
Fran T.
What's happening?
And Yvette Blackman-Tom.
Hello.
Hello. And we have a really special guest with us today. He is an author extraordinaire, a phenomenal photographer. He's a really, really hardcore Trek fan, and we love him to pieces. We're here with Tyler Attico. Hey, Derek.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be really a lot of fun. I've been waiting for this for a very, very long time.
Oh, yeah. And we have been waiting for you too.
Yes, we have.
Yes, we have. We're so excited to be here live with this audience here today at Shore Leave. So we're going to kick it off really fast, really quick. Okay. Hardcore.
Okay.
Talk to me about your nerddom. Because I know you were a nerd real young.
Oh, yeah. I've always been a nerd. Let me just say really quick. I remember it can't be 2 years ago. So maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I was actually in these halls, and a few of you ladies tracked me down and said, "You're Derek Attico." I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "You write for Star Trek?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you got to sign. you got to sign. We got to talk to you. We're the Sci-Fi Sistas." And I said, "Oh, this is dope." Right.
That would be Sabrina and Frank.
We chased them down in the hallway.
Right. Chased me down the hall, and I was like, "Oh, this is really great." And it was just really the energy, the excitement made me excited to see you guys. So it was a lot of fun. And from 3 years ago to today. So I've been waiting for this, and thank you so much. Now to answer your question. Yeah, I was a nerd before there was such a word or anything. I didn't know anything about being a nerd. I just liked what I liked, which I credit my parents, primarily my mom. My mom was very eclectic. She would just have like Star Trek on, or have sci-fi on, or vampires, and I didn't know no different. It was on TV, I'd watch it, right? Mm-hmm. So Star Trek was on a lot of times in the house, and that was my first introduction. I think the sci-fi was probably, now I think about it, was probably Star Trek and the old Twilight Zone TV show, right? And so I grew up with science fiction that entertained with a message.
Yes.
And so what that did was it ingrained in me that if you're going to tell a story, you do it, you entertain, you give people something that will thrill them, but then you sneak a message in there, that's somehow some kind of way got into my brain. Then I remember like the original Star Wars came out, and my mom's always been thinking. She's a thinker. So we went to see Star Wars. We caught like the midnight show, and my parents, especially my mom, it didn't matter what hour, it didn't matter what movie. I've got to have seen at least 5,000 movies in my life. So took me to see Star Wars, like the midnight show. And I loved it, of course, I was a little kid. But when I got home, I was yakking about it, this and that. My mom, before the movie, probably a day or two before, had bought like all these Star Wars comics and let me read them that same night. And what that did was it kind of cemented in my brain, that this thing was not only allowed, but encouraged.
Right.
And for me, there's a point to what I'm saying. So for So for me, I was blown away by this, but I wanted to know like how all this stuff was done. And so I wanted to know like who George Lucas was and how this thing happened. So I learned that, there's a guy named George Lucas, he wrote this stuff. So I wanted to know what it was about writing.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of started me to become a writer and screenplays and that format and how all that was done. So that's how I started, was learning to write screenplays.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you were this young Black kid into all of this sci-fi stuff. Was that a thing? I mean, was there, because I know like we've talked about the Sistas, like we've talked about a couple times being young and Black and into sci-fi and how that like some of us like that was not cool, right? Some of us, we were just like, I mean, I was always a geek. I was always a nerd and I always had my head in a book. And like, I was already well in the nerdy camp at school. Like there was no, there was no mistaking me for the popular kids or anything. But, then others like Yvette grew up like into sports and we were just talking about like, you weren't telling anybody.
Oh, no.
You were
Right.
you were closet. you were in the closet. Like, so how was that for you?
So my mom brainwashed me, right? And I didn't know it was brainwashed. Like I didn't know that like Captain Crunch and Count Chocula existed until like I was like maybe like 10 years old.
Okay.
And I thank her for that stuff, But so my bedtime stories were the Odyssey. Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Right. I had read all of Shakespeare. I had read all of Grimm's fairy tales when I was like about 7, 8 years old. So by the time I was in 4th grade, and they have like reading tests and all that stuff. So I had college level reading by 4th grade.
Wow.
And so they brought my mom in and it's like, well, we gave him this reading test, the annual reading test, and he's cheating on the test. Because there's no way possible
that
a 4th grader has college level reading. So what we're going to do is he has to take the test again by himself. Okay. And my mom was like, okay. So I got a perfect score. Because I was by myself. Okay. Okay, you're going to go there? Okay. And so that was always the norm in the household, and that type of literature and those classics, that was the norm. So by the time I got to like high school, that was all old hack for me.
Yeah.
You were bored.
I was, I had read it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only thing I hadn't read was like Canterbury Tales.
Uh-huh.
By the time I got into high school, so that was new for me. But pretty much everything else, I had done and read. So that was great. So I was always looking for new things to read. And I was pushing for new things to read and new things to do. And so by the time I was in high school, I was starting to write because that was the new challenge. And my mom never stopped me. She was like, okay, you want to do this thing? Okay, go and do it. So by the time I was like 15, 16, I started writing screenplays. Well, started learning how to write screenplays. And I just started writing them. I wrote a screenplay in high school.
We're looking at you.
Right, so I know you're right. I know she's writing, right? And I got to take a podcast. I know. Right.
And every screenwriter I've ever known or talked to, the first thing you write is not a screenplay. That's so unusual.
Oh yeah. No. That's how I started. That's how I started. And so the beauty of that, though.
Okay.
At the same time, you gotta understand. So I'm 16, but so by 10, I've been watching films from like 8 years old, right?
That's
so
what it is.
I was like a paper boy, 8, 9 years old. And what I would do with my cash is I wouldn't like save it. I would go to films, right? So here I am watching films every week. I'm watching 2, 3, 4, 5 films a week. Okay. And what I'm doing is I'm learning story structure.
Yep.
That's all I'm doing. I'm getting entertained, but I'm learning story structure.
Mhm.
And so this is like, not to date myself, but I'm learning, I'm seeing films, a lot of it's like in the 80s, and I'm seeing really good movies, and I didn't discriminate, so I watched everything. And so I'm learning story structure. I'm entertaining myself. I'm going to movies. By the time I get to high school, I'm like, oh, I want to write. I want to just, and I didn't really know, I wasn't really thinking about becoming a screenwriter. I just wanted to write, I think. So I write the screenplay, and it was like a Star Wars screenplay. And this is like in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It was like a year before Return of the Jedi came out. And so I wrote the screenplay that takes place 1,000 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. I gave it to my English teacher to basically edit and for grammar. She takes 3 months getting it back to me. So I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? And she's like, oh, I'll give it back to you, but you got to come with me to this place. And I've gotten your mom's permission. And I'm like, what is
backdoor? Backdoor.
I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on?
So, turns out she submitted it to this. I always mix this up, but I think they're the Screenwriters Guild.
Yeah, WGA.
Yeah,
right.
and she submitted it, and it was an award program where they took 12,000 students across America, and they only picked 12 students, and I was one of the 12.
Right.
Wow. Right.
Yes. It was cool, and it was a storyline, which is oddly enough, it was a storyline that was 1,000 years after the events in Star Wars, and the Force and everything becomes a myth, and everyone forgets about what the Force is. But a clone casket is found and Vader was in the clone casket, but he's not hideously, And there's a lot of things in it, right? And it's not like anything. It's funny that you're on the same. You're touching a lot of the same things. Just because if you know story,
right,
you're just hitting a lot of the same marks.
Right.
And I was a kid just paying attention, doing my research, paying attention. And so that was my first award, and I was like, oh wow, I can write.
Which is a shock when you figure it out,
right? So after high school, I wanted to go to NYU, but I couldn't afford it. And I got accepted to NYU to School of the Arts for screenwriting. We couldn't afford to go. So I didn't go. So I went to school for law. I went to Johnson College Criminal Justice instead. And I was like, well, maybe I'll never be a writer or whatever.
Wow.
And years later, a friend of mine's, he's like, they got this Star Trek contest for writers. I like Star Trek. I like Star Trek. I like the original series. TNG, first season wasn't,
Right. We know.
But it's called, because some of the first season, right? But he said, it's called Strange New Worlds. Why don't you look into it? I looked into it, and I said, if I'm going to write something, I need to do the research. So I started watching TNG, and what was beautiful about doing that research is I was reintroduced to Star Trek. And in that reintroduction, I realized that everything I loved about TOS was still in TNG. It was still there.
Yeah.
Roddenberry was genius, and he had put it all there, And I was like, oh, wow, I really love these characters. And so then I started to craft basically a TNG short story. It couldn't be more than 7,500 words. I did that. I submitted it. I forgot it. I don't know, maybe 6 months later or something like that, I get a call that it got into the Strange New Worlds 8 anthology, and it took first place.
Nice.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, wow, maybe I still got something, going on, right?
Yeah.
And so then I was like, oh, maybe I should try, this writing thing. I didn't really know anything about the business of writing.
Right.
So I had skill and talent, but nothing about how to, navigate as a writer.
How to market yourself.
How to market
yourself. You get an agent.
Right, none of that. And you can have all the skill in the world, but if you don't know the other side of that, then you will, in a lot of ways, I think you will just hover in a certain place, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Go right to yourself.
Flounder. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I did for a while,
Mhm.
and I think there were certain people that were like, "Hey, you want to do an anthology? You want to do this?" And they looked out, which was really great. But I still didn't know what I didn't know, you know.
Right.
And then, so that's from 2005. Then 2016. By that time, I had educated myself a lot. And the 50th anniversary of Star Trek rolled around. I wrote a Benjamin Sisko, Benny Russell short story. Submitted that one. And by that time, I said, okay, now I know the business. I still have I know the business. I still have the craft, thankfully, you know, and I'm going to try and make a run at this. And I've been writing ever since.
Wow.
It's been doing a good job too.
Well, hopefully, you know, and if I hadn't written that Benny Russell story, I would never have gotten to write the autobiography of Ben Sisko.
Right.
And I wrote a Benny Russell story that I wanted to see, you know, not what I thought people would like, not what I thought would be PC, you know, because in the story I wrote, Benny's very angry. You know,
right.
He's been locked up for about 10 years, and you know, he's just in a bad place. And I thought that was a story that people needed to read and something I wanted to say. And that was the story that got me this book. So
is that
real quick, where, so people know, where do you find that Benny Russell story?
That Benny Russell story is only on ebook, but it's Star Trek Strange New Worlds 2016. So you can find that on Amazon.
Okay.
And I think it's like maybe like $5. And it's, you know, it's the beauty of it though. It's not just my story. It's an anthology of Star Trek Strange New World stories. So you don't just get my story. You get about 9 other stories of Star Trek stories from every series of Star Trek. So there's a lot of us in there, and you get to read every different era of Star Trek.
Yeah, those are some great anthologies.
They are.
Yeah.
The Strange New World series is great, and they've launched a lot of people. Dayton Ward, who's a phenomenal Star Trek author, he started through Strange New World. So, and you guys are doing him. You guys are
tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. right in this room.
So that's great. Yeah, he's a great guy.
So did you The Dreamer in the Dream? The Deep Space Nine novel? It's a novel, right?
No, it's a short story.
That's the short story.
Yeah.
That's the one?
That's the one.
Okay, that's the Dreamer in the Dream. I was like reading that title, and I was just thinking to myself, like, I wonder how much do you identify with Benny Russell? I mean, it's so meta.
It is very meta.
It's extremely meta.
It's a very meta story. Yeah, it's a very meta story. I do identify with Benny. At the time I wrote it, I was like, I'm gonna write something that's just really gonna like scramble people's brains. But I think I was a little upset at things that were happening at the time. I mean, I think that's what a writer's responsibility. James Baldwin says that the responsibility of a writer is to be a mirror to society. You know, and so I believe that.
Yeah,
I'm a little different than Baldwin. I also want to entertain. And I think he and I would probably argue, you know, he was like, no, he'd probably say, just be the mirror. But I think, you know, you can't always force feed people. You know, you have to sometimes spoon feed them or not even feed them, but ask them to come to the table, you know. So what I wanted to do was entertain. Star Trek gave me that platform, you know. Dream in the Dream is an angry black man. He's been Benny Russell. He's been in an insane asylum for 10 years after the events of Far Beyond the Stars, because he won't stop writing his story. Because the black man won't stop writing his stories. He's been locked up. Cassie's left him. Oh no. You know, and he's locked up, but he can't let go of what he wants to do. Right. And his therapist is like, look, just put all of your anger into this one last story. And he starts doing that. But what he doesn't realize is that in doing that, he is destroying the future.
Wow.
And everything's going to hell, you know, in the 24th century. So he may come out okay, but he's destroying by doing that the 24th century.
The repercussions of
The
all
repercussions,
this,
right.
all this anger,
Right.
generations of anger.
Right.
Oh, I love it.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, the generational trauma.
generational trauma. You
Yeah.
know, and you know, and being cooped up, and so he has boxes in his room, in the same asylum and each box has a name of a Starfleet captain on it. You know, because he's written all of Star Trek over the 10 years he's been in this institution, right? So he has a box for Archer, a box for Kirk, a box for Janeway.
Wow.
He's just been writing this whole time, but nobody has seen any of these stories.
Wow.
He's so frustrated, you know? And so I was like, you know, I know I was frustrated. I was like, you know, writers and writers of color don't always get to express things, you know? So I was like, I'm gonna put it into him.
Yeah.
You know, and the story did well. So I was happy the story did well. And you know, I won't convey the ending and what happens, but people liked it.
So let me ask you this. Okay, so Deep Space Nine comes out. So you start with TNG,
Right?
You start with TNG to get back at your Star Trek chops back, right? Did you go on to DS9 from there? Was that the natural progression for you, or?
Yeah, well, if I'm gonna be really honest, I had the idea for the Benny story before I wrote the TNG story. The TNG story is called Alpha and Omega, and I had the idea for the Benny story, but I'm like, you know what? I want to start with a TNG story. 'Cause I love TNG, but I want to show that I can write TNG.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
because I think it's expected that I could do DS9 because you know, it's a stereotype. Oh yeah, of course you can write DS9 as a black captain. Of course you can write that. But no, I can also. I'm a writer. I can write anything. You know, and that's not to say anything of ego. You know, it's just to say that you know I'm a writer. I can write anything that's expected of me, and beyond that, right? So I wrote this story, Alpha and Omega. You know, there's a Borg supercube that has 500 million drones in it. It's in orbit over Earth. All the drones are in standby mode, and no one knows why. And there's one Borg supercube over every major power in the Alpha Quadrant.
Oh, wow.
Nobody knows why.
Wow.
And the reason why is disastrous. And if you were to read Alpha and Omega now, and having seen Picard, and you'd be like, "What? He wrote that in 2005? What?"
We'd be like, "Oh, Octavia Butler Jr."
There's a lot of stuff from 2005. Like, wow, that's interesting. So yeah, and I was very fortunate to be able to get that story in. But yeah, then I went and did Deep Space Nine because then I was like, you know, now that I've gotten the TNG story out of me, I can do the DS9 one.
Right. You've proven your chops.
Yeah, I've proven myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we talked to the writer of the Benny Russell episode, Far Beyond the Stars, and I asked if there had been anybody black in that writer's room, and they wrote that story.
Right.
And there wasn't,
right?
Which I thought was, so they can write a black story, and there's no question. So I think it's very interesting. I think it's really smart of you to write the TNG story first, and then go back and say, okay, now I can write anything. So give me what I really want to write, because I thought that was odd that there was. I don't know of any other I don't know of a black writer in any of the Star Trek writers' room. As much as they claim, diversity into this and to that, that writer's room has been very white for all I can understand or know until we get to Legacy Trek. So we finally get black writers in that writer's room. So it's really interesting. It's just interesting.
As I understand it, Discovery was the first diverse writers' room.
Yes.
And it shows.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not to say that there haven't been some phenomenal episodes written in every era of Trek, every legacy era of Trek that dealt with race and dealt with color. And what that shows is that, people can write these things if
the talent is there.
Yeah, and what my grandmother used to say is like, what's in your heart comes out your mouth, right? So,
Right.
if you don't have that, if you don't have anything bad in you, then it's usually not. It's going to come out. If you have anything bad in you, it's going to come out. If you don't, it's going to come out. So, what I'm saying is, you have episodes like Let That Be Your Battlefield, where they're, one side is when these guys were Frank Gorshin, with one side is white, one side is black.
Right.
It's a phenomenal episode dealing with color, right?
That's right.
It's phenomenal. And it dealing with race, and you got people that are making a statement about the period. Yeah. Beyond that, you're talking Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry knew what he's doing by just setting up the whole chessboard of Star Trek.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. And so, he's setting up all of us to be able to play in this universe and tell these stories. And that's a white guy setting that up.
Yep.
So.
And Rod Serling.
Right.
Rod Serling was great.
Rod Serling
was great in the Twilight Zone with the metaphors that he did too with race, and he even one show was in the 60s. He talked about the Vietnam War.
Right.
Jack Klugman was in that episode. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they talking about the Vietnam, because I didn't remember it back then, but he talked about the Vietnam War back in the 60s.
Yeah.
This was Rod Serling's take on stuff that was going on.
People, and then, you look at, TNG with The Measure of a Man and what it means to have rights, to be human, and obviously by the idea to bring in Avery Brooks to play Sisko,
right.
I mean, just the statement that would make, they knew what that statement was going to be, and just Avery Brooks and his presence, what that does.
That's what I was going to ask you. When you first were watching DS9, what did that mean? What did Sisko mean to you? What did it mean to see Avery Brooks up there? Because I know it shook me.
Well, okay, so I knew of the individual. I knew of the actor from Spencer for Hire and Hawk. Right?
Yeah.
And so, I knew he was going to be playing, I knew Mr. Brooks was going to be playing Benjamin Sisko. That first 5 minutes of that first episode, Emissary, shook me because
it still does.
As an act, well, I don't remember what age I was, but I remember watching it, and he was doing nothing like he had done before, And what made writing the autobiography challenging was that he there's no other performance that you can go to that's like Sisko.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go to Hawk and see any of Sisko in Hawk.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. Okay.
You can't. I've looked, you can't, right? You just can't. And so, and then in that first 4 minutes, it's an incredible level of depth. The writing is just phenomenal. And then he takes those words that are written and he's just playing them to the hilt. He loses everything in 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The first minute of the show, his ship is destroyed.
Right.
His wife is killed.
Yep.
By the end of 4 minutes, he's watching the ship explode. He's with his son in the escape craft. It's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. And that's where we're starting.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wow. And as a kid that wanted to write and was thinking about writing, I was like, this is where they're starting. This is where Star Trek is starting. This is what they're saying to not just Star Trek fans, but this is what they're saying. This is our new show. This is our lead. This is where we're taking you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's a statement.
Yeah.
That's a statement.
Yeah.
And no Star Trek show has really done that as powerfully in that way. It's just so powerful. And the themes of religion and race with the Cardassians and Bajorans, it's just so intense and just done with such finesse and such beauty that everyone can identify with it.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, everyone. Yep.
And so that's the challenge of the biography,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's the autobiography of a Black man, but, you know, somebody in Italy picking it up needs to be able to see themselves in it, as opposed to somebody in Bed-Stuy.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm not doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Deep Space Nine did. And that's what I need to do.
Mm.
So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, man, that was answered the question and so much more. You just went down like all my questions. I'm like, well, check that one off. Check that one off. Check that one off. All right, so down on my list. We were sitting around, Sabrina and I were just eating upstairs, and we were wondering if there was if there was something that you learned about Sisko
Mhm.
through the process of doing this autobiography that you didn't know about him before.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, we came up with that one, didn't we?
That's right. Yeah, baby. Sure did. Right upstairs, because we're prepared like that.
That's a great question. I'll say this. I'll say when I got the gig, I had a conversation, and I should say the Titan Books has been really phenomenal. Has been really phenomenal with me, and my editor George Sanderson, managing editor of Titan Books, he and I had a conversation, and he was like, this is the way we want to go, and part of the way they wanted to go was basically that it was written through Jake, through his like a book that Jake would write, and the autobiography through like his, because Jake has written like Anselm and other books and stuff. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to go that route, because I think it should be Ben in his own words, and the trick then is how to do that, right? And so I told him my idea, and he was like, well, I like your idea. All right, we'll go with your idea. And so then for CBS, you have to do an outline. That outline has to get approved. And then I realized pretty quickly, I was like, oh, wow, I have to do an outline. That outline has to get approved. Once I do that outline, I'm locked in.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I had to come up with everything I wanted for Ben, everything I knew I wanted to put in. I had to create the life of a pop icon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
He's a 90s pop icon, for a lot of different communities, right? And Star Trek community, I think, first and foremost, right? And I had to create a life for him and see if that would get approved. And then I'd be locked in to write that life, I mean, with little things here and there, And that got approved after I thought a lot about it first, though. I thought a lot about it, a lot of just standing in the shower. Because you need silence to think.
That's right.
And you need silence to think, and then you need to plan. You need silence. So I just did that. I wrote the outline that got approved, and then just went at it. And what surprised me the most about Ben, I would say, is something that one of the first things I did right before I started writing was I listened to an episode of Sci-Fi Sisters.
Bam!
And
that's what I'm talking about. That's right.
And you guys had an episode about Ben Sisko. And you guys had I forget the name of the guest, but she was I think she was a
Dr. Crystal Fleming.
Dr. Crystal Fleming.
Yeah.
And so she was talking about her opinion of Ben Sisko and what he was and what he is, and is he this magical individual? Is he not? What is he? And Ben Sisko is a human being. He's a lot of things, but he's a human being, and he's a man, and he's a father. And he is also the emissary of the prophets, and he is also a Star Fleet captain. He is all of those things. And most importantly, he is a father. And all of those things are reflected in this autobiography.
Ooh, I can't wait. I know.
I remember when you when it came out, that you were going to do it. I just looked at it, like the post came up on Instagram, and I just stared at it, and I was like, "Am I reading this correctly?" Because I know Janeway has one, Picard has one, and I don't know why I didn't think that there would be one for Sisko, but I did not.
I know why I didn't think there would be.
Well, I know why. I'm just gonna, it's working this way. But when I saw it, and then I think I reached out to you like right away. Right. And I was like, you are the perfect person for this.
Thank you so much for that.
Because I'm so proud of you. That's so proud of you.
We are getting the old heave ho up here, but before we go, will you let everybody know when the autobiography is supposed to be coming out, and any other things that for looking at finding your work that you want to let people know about?
Absolutely. I would just say October 10th is our target date, is when the book is coming out. It is available for pre-order right now.
Mine is ordered.
Right now. So you don't have to wait till October 10th. You can pre-order right now. I will say really quickly that Titan Books told me that they always plan on doing a Sisko book.
That's
they wanted
great.
to find the right person for it. They felt that I was. And I was like, wow, that was really great. And they told me that it was because of the Benny Russell story that they wanted me to do. And other things I'm doing. Well, I've been living Ben for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm doing right now. Anything else? I'll think about whatever I'm gonna do.
You're gonna be riding with your sci-fi sisters. That's what you're gonna be doing.
When it comes out,
the second Sherlock Holmes story.
Oh, great! I look forward to that. I know, because we got to have you back on, because we didn't talk. We didn't get to talk Buffy. We didn't get to talk Sherlock, so there's a lot more that we want to talk to you about. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you all for coming to the show.
You can find us at sci-fisistas.com. That's SYFYSISTAS.com. Join us on the mothership. That's MUTHASHIP. And the Sci-Fi Sisters Book Club, both on Facebook. On Instagram and TikTok, sci-fi.sisters. And we're also on the Twitter at Sci-Fi Sisters. Become a patron of Sci-Fi Sisters today at patreon.com/Sci-Fi Sisters. The Trek Geeks Network presenting sponsor is Fansets. Go to fansets.com for pins and memorabilia for all your favorite franchises. Visit fansets.com and use Trek Geeks, all caps, for your exclusive 10% discount. After listening to this podcast, please rate us and write a review. We may just read it on an upcoming episode.
Y'all, it's been so much fun. We got one last shout out to do, and that's for the baddest engineer in all universes. He's Dose, the anonymous one. He's responsible for the music that you hear. Dose, 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 Dose. He has his own theme song. He's our engineer, the bestest. If you need his skills, you can look him up on Instagram at Dose_the_anonymous_1. And y'all, that's it for us. We are out of here. Thank you for listening. We love you very much. Peace, love, and hair grease.